Admiral Chris stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the display screen with growing confusion. The massive ship moved through space like a living thing, its sensors picking up signals that should not exist. For 30 years, he had commanded the Outer Rim Patrol fleet of the Galactic Empire. He had seen strange things before, but nothing like this. "Lieutenant Yoon, run the scan again," Chris ordered, his voice tight with worry. Yoon's fingers danced over the control panel. The young officer had excellent skills with the ship's computers, but even he looked confused by the readings. "Sir, the numbers are the same. The object is huge, bigger than our largest battleships, but it moves like a small fighter craft." Chris walked closer to the main screen. The image showed a dark shape against the stars. It was beautiful in a way that made him nervous. The ship's hull seemed to bend light around it, creating strange patterns that hurt his eyes if he looked too long. "What species built this?" Chris asked. Captain Huan stepped forward from his position at the science station. As the fleet's expert on alien life, he knew every species in the Empire's database. "Sir, I intercepted some of their communications. They call themselves humans. From a planet called Earth." The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew about Earth. It was a small, unremarkable world on the edge of known space. The Empire had made first contact with humans 50 years ago. They were listed as a primitive species. Their technology was so basic that the Empire barely considered them worth watching. "That cannot be right," Chris said slowly. "Humans barely have space travel. Their largest ships are slow colony vessels. They use chemical rockets." Juan nodded, but his face showed doubt. "Sir, that was our last report. But this ship, it does not match anything in our files." Lieutenant Yoon looked up from his station. "Sir, I'm reading the ship's energy output. The numbers are impossible. This vessel produces more power than our entire fleet combined." Chris felt cold fear creep up his spine. The Galactic Empire had ruled this part of space for thousands of years. They were the most advanced civilization anyone knew. Their technology was the best in the galaxy. But this human ship made their greatest achievements look like children's toys. "Show me the human files," Chris ordered. The main screen changed to display everything the Empire knew about humans. The information was brief and not very impressive. Humans had discovered nuclear power only 200 years ago. They had achieved basic spaceflight just over a century ago. Their military technology was primitive. Their largest weapons could barely damage an Empire scout ship. The file showed pictures of human spacecraft. They were crude metal tubes with simple rocket engines. The humans needed months to travel between planets in their own solar system. The Empire's scientists had calculated that it would take humans thousands of years to develop real interstellar travel. "Sir," Yoon called out, "the human ship is sending a communication request." Chris straightened his uniform. First contact with an unknown vessel required careful protocol. But this was not just any unknown vessel. This was a ship that defied everything the Empire understood about human capabilities. "Put them through," Chris ordered. The screen flickered, and a human face appeared. The man looked ordinary, neither young nor old, with dark hair and calm eyes. He wore a simple uniform that looked practical rather than impressive. "Greetings," the human said in perfect galactic standard. "I am Admiral Park of the United Human Defense Force. We received your scanning signals and wanted to introduce ourselves properly." Chris studied the human's face. Admiral Park looked relaxed, almost friendly. There was no sign of the fear or nervousness that most species showed when meeting Empire ships for the first time. "I am Admiral Chris of the Galactic Empire 4th Fleet. We were surprised to encounter a human vessel in this region." Admiral Park smiled. "I can understand that. We know your files on us are a bit out of date. We have been meaning to update our first contact information, but we have been quite busy lately. Your ship," Chris said carefully, "appears to be significantly more advanced than our records indicate is possible for human technology." "Oh, this old thing?" Park glanced around as if looking at his bridge. "The Indomitable is just a standard patrol vessel. We use her for routine border monitoring. Nothing too fancy." Captain Huan stepped closer to Chris and whispered, "Sir, our sensors indicate their routine patrol vessel could destroy our entire fleet without taking damage." Chris kept his expression neutral, but inside he felt growing alarm. If this was just a routine patrol ship, what did human battleships look like? "Admiral Park," Chris said, "perhaps we could arrange a formal meeting. The Empire would like to update our records on human technological development." "Of course," Park replied cheerfully. We would be happy to share information. We have always believed in good relations with our galactic neighbors. The communication ended, leaving the Empire bridge in stunned silence. Everyone stared at the main screen, which now showed the impossible human ship hanging motionless in space. "Sir," Yoon said quietly, "how did they advance so quickly? 50 years ago they could barely leave their home planet." Chris had no answer. In 50 years, humans had somehow developed technology that made the Empire's greatest achievements look primitive. It was not just advanced, it was revolutionary. The ship's very existence challenged everything the Empire understood about physics and engineering. "Captain Huan," Chris ordered, "send an immediate message to Imperial Command. Tell them we have encountered a human vessel with capabilities far beyond anything in our projections. Request instructions for dealing with a potentially superior technological force." Huan nodded and began composing the message, but Chris knew that Imperial Command would not believe the report. No one would believe it until they saw the impossible human ship with their own eyes. As Admiral Chris watched the human vessel, he realized that the galaxy had just changed forever. Humanity was no longer a primitive species to be ignored. They had become something new, something unprecedented, and the Empire had no idea what to do about it. The stars seemed different now, full of possibilities that had not existed an hour ago. Somewhere in the vast darkness, humans were building impossible ships and developing miraculous technology. The age of Empire dominance might be coming to an end, replaced by something unimaginable. Admiral Chris continued to stare at the human ship, wondering what other surprises humanity had prepared for an unsuspecting galaxy. Chief Engineer Tay had spent his entire life studying the laws of physics. He understood how matter and energy worked together. He knew the rules that governed space and time. But as he stared at the sensor readings from the human ship, none of his knowledge made sense anymore. "These numbers are wrong," Tay muttered, running the scans for the 5th time. "They have to be wrong." Dr. Nari looked over his shoulder at the data. As the Empire's leading scientist, she had seen many strange things in her career. But the human vessel defied everything she understood about reality itself. "The hull composition is impossible," she said, pointing at the screen. "It appears to be made of materials that exist in multiple dimensions at the same time. How can solid matter phase in and out of normal space?" Tay shook his head. "Look at these energy readings. The ship's power source is generating output equivalent to a small star. But there is no fusion reaction, no antimatter signatures, no quantum singularity. Where is the energy coming from?" The two scientists worked in the Empire's most advanced research station, surrounded by instruments that could analyze matter down to the subatomic level. Every sensor, every detector, every measuring device gave them the same impossible results. "The propulsion system makes no sense," Tay continued. "The ship moves without any visible thrust. No exhaust, no particle emissions, no gravitational disturbance. It just moves, as if space itself is rearranging to let it pass." Dr. Nari pulled up another set of readings. "And look at this. The ship's mass readings keep changing. Sometimes it registers as having the weight of a small moon. Other times it appears to have negative mass. How can an object change its fundamental properties while maintaining structural integrity?" Captain Byung entered the laboratory, carrying orders from Imperial Command. He had been chosen to establish formal contact with the humans, but first he needed to understand what his sensors were telling him. "What do we know about their technology?" Byung asked. Tay and Nari exchanged worried glances. "Sir," Tay began carefully, "we know that it should not exist. Every reading we take violates basic laws of physics. The human ship appears to exist in normal space while simultaneously operating outside the normal rules of reality." "Give me specifics," Byung demanded. Dr. Nari activated a holographic display showing the human vessel. "The hull exists in multiple dimensional phases. We can see it with our eyes, but our sensors detect it existing in spaces that overlap with normal matter, without collision. It is as if the ship can choose which laws of physics apply to it at any given moment. The weapon signatures are equally disturbing," Tay added. "They appear to have weaponized quantum mechanics itself. We detect probability fluctuation generators, reality anchor systems, and something our computers cannot even identify. They call it a dimensional cascade projector." Byung stared at the hologram. The human ship looked simple enough from the outside. Its design was clean and practical, without the ornate decorations that marked most Empire vessels. But apparently its simple appearance hid technology that rewrote the fundamental rules of existence. Have you tried to communicate with them about their technology? Byung asked. Yes, sir, Dr. Nari replied. Admiral Park was very helpful. He answered all our questions. That is part of the problem. What do you mean? Tay pulled up a recording of their conversation with the human admiral. He talks about their technology as if it were perfectly normal. He mentioned something called quantum consciousness integration and dimensional engineering. When we asked for clarification, he suggested we start with basic reality manipulation theory and work our way up. He recommended some textbooks, Dr. Nari added with a strange expression. Apparently, human university students learn these concepts in their first year of study. What we consider impossible physics, they consider elementary education. Captain, Byung felt the same cold fear that had gripped Admiral Chris. Are you telling me that human children understand technology that our greatest scientists cannot even comprehend? That appears to be the case, Tay confirmed. Admiral Park mentioned that his ship's engineer is fresh out of something called technical college. She designed the reality anchor system as her final project. Dr. Nari activated another display. We asked about their power source. Admiral Park seemed surprised by the question. He said they use what he called a basic dimensional tap. According to him, it draws energy from the quantum foam that underlies all reality. He made it sound as simple as connecting a wire to a battery. The humans also mentioned that they have been observing us for decades, Tay continued. When we asked how, Admiral Park said they use standard stealth protocols. Apparently, they can make their ships exist outside normal spacetime while still observing everything that happens in our dimension. Byung sat down heavily in a nearby chair. So they have been watching us without our knowledge, using technology we cannot detect or understand. Yes, sir, Dr. Nari replied. And that is not the worst part. There is something worse? Tay nodded grimly. Admiral Park casually mentioned that they are in contact with 17 other galactic civilizations. All of them have technology similar to ours. All of them had the same reaction when they encountered human ships. What reaction? Complete technological shock, Dr. Nari explained. According to the humans, most species get a bit excited when they see human engineering in action. Admiral Park seemed to think this was amusing. Captain Byung tried to process this information. So humans have developed impossible technology, have been secretly observing multiple galactic civilizations, and think our amazement at their capabilities is entertaining? That appears to be accurate, Tay confirmed. Byung stood up and walked to the viewport. Outside, the human ship hung in space like a metal puzzle that solved itself. Its very existence challenged everything the Empire believed about the nature of reality. What do our theoretical physicists think about this? Byung asked. Dr. Nari hesitated. Sir, we have been careful about sharing these readings with the broader scientific community. Most of our colleagues would assume the data is corrupted or fabricated. The implications are too disturbing for general circulation. Disturbing how? If human technology truly works the way our sensors indicate, Tay explained, then our understanding of physics is not just incomplete, it is fundamentally wrong. We have been building our civilization on a foundation of scientific principles that apparently do not represent the full truth about how reality functions. Captain Byung looked back at the two scientists. Both had dedicated their lives to understanding the natural world. Now they faced the possibility that everything they knew was merely the beginning of a much larger and stranger truth. Prepare a full report, Byung ordered. Include all sensor data, all communication transcripts, and your analysis. Imperial Command needs to understand what we are dealing with. As Byung left the laboratory, Tai and Dr. Nari returned to their impossible readings. Somewhere in the darkness of space, humans had unlocked secrets that made the Empire's greatest achievements look like cave paintings, and they had done it all while treating the fundamental forces of reality as construction materials for their engineering projects. Emperor Gorth sat on his throne, reading the report from Admiral Chris with growing disbelief. The massive ruler of the Galactic Empire had conquered dozens of worlds and defeated countless enemies. But the words on the screen described something that challenged everything he understood about power and technology. This is impossible, Gorth declared to his assembled advisors. No species can advance this quickly. Our intelligence networks would have detected such development. General An, the Empire's military commander, stepped forward. Your Majesty, Admiral Chris is one of our most reliable officers. His reports have always been accurate. Then his sensors are malfunctioning, Gorth replied firmly. Or these humans have created some kind of illusion to make their ships appear more powerful than they actually are. Defense Minister Kang reviewed the data on his portable screen. Sire, if this is deception, it is remarkably sophisticated. The energy signatures, the material analysis, the propulsion readings, everything suggests genuine technological advancement far beyond our capabilities. Emperor Gorth stood up from his throne. His massive frame towered over his advisors, and his expression showed the anger that had made him feared throughout the galaxy. I want proof. Real proof. Not sensor readings that could be faked. Not energy signatures that could be spoofed. I want to see what these humans can actually do. The Emperor's communication with Admiral Park was arranged within hours. The human admiral appeared on the main screen of the Imperial Palace, looking as calm and friendly as before. Your Imperial Majesty, Park said with a polite bow. It is an honor to speak with you directly. Admiral Park, Gorth replied in his most commanding voice. My advisors have made remarkable claims about your vessel's capabilities. I find these claims difficult to believe. Park nodded understandingly. That is perfectly reasonable, Your Majesty. We understand that our technology might seem unusual to civilizations that develop along more traditional paths. I want a demonstration, Gorth demanded. Show me what your ship can actually do. Of course, Park replied cheerfully. We were planning to run some routine tests anyway. We recently installed new modifications and need to check that everything is working properly. The transmission switched to show the space around the human ship. Emperor Gorth, his advisors, and millions of Empire citizens watched through military observation satellites as the demonstration began. Captain Lee, the human tactical officer, appeared on a secondary channel. Beginning standard combat exercise, he announced as if discussing the weather. Testing maneuverability systems first. The human ship began to move, but it did not move the way ships were supposed to move. Instead of turning gradually to change direction, it simply faced a new heading instantly. There was no rotation, no transition period. The massive vessel just existed, pointing in a different direction. How is that possible? General Ahn whispered. The demonstration continued. The human ship approached a nearby asteroid field, a collection of space rocks that would normally require careful navigation to avoid collision. But the human vessel did not navigate around the asteroids. It passed through them. The ship's hull occupied the same space as solid rock without any impact, explosion, or damage. It was as if the asteroids and the ship existed in different realities that happened to overlap in the same location. Dr. Sung, the human science officer, provided commentary with disturbing casualness. Testing our phase displacement systems. We can shift the ship's dimensional frequency to avoid interaction with normal matter. Very useful for avoiding debris in crowded space. Emperor Gorth watched in stunned silence as the human ship demonstrated abilities that rewrote his understanding of what was possible. The vessel changed its apparent size, growing larger and smaller without any visible mechanism. It created perfect copies of itself that moved independently before merging back into a single ship. Reality anchor systems functioning normally, Dr. Sung reported. Probability manipulation drives responding correctly. No anomalous space-time distortions detected. The human ship's next demonstration made the Emperor's advisors gasp in amazement. The vessel created what appeared to be a small black hole, used it to dispose of some kind of waste material, and then made the black hole disappear as if it had never existed. Routine waste disposal, Captain Lee explained helpfully. We convert organic waste into energy and dump the excess mass into temporary gravitational singularities. Much cleaner than old-fashioned recycling methods. General Ahn turned to Emperor Gorth with a pale face. Your Majesty, that ship just created and destroyed a black hole for garbage disposal. Our most advanced scientists have spent centuries trying to understand black holes. These humans use them like trash cans. The demonstration reached its most disturbing point when the Empire's sensors detected multiple versions of the human ship in different locations simultaneously. The vessel had somehow split itself across several points in space while maintaining full functionality in each location. Testing parallel existence protocols, Dr. Sung announced. The ship can maintain multiple quantum states simultaneously, allowing us to be in several places at once. Very convenient for patrol duties. Commander June joined the communication from what appeared to be the ship's recreational area. Behind him, other humans played games and tended to plants in what looked like a garden. "Everything looks good from here," he reported. "The dimensional expansion is holding steady. We have plenty of room for the crew facilities." Emperor Gorth stared at the screen. "What does he mean by dimensional expansion?" Admiral Park answered the question. "Oh, the ship's interior exists in a pocket dimension that is larger than the exterior hull. We needed the extra space for crew comfort and our agricultural areas, standard practice for long-range vessels." The Emperor's military advisors began calculating what they had just witnessed. A single human ship had demonstrated the ability to ignore physical laws, manipulate matter and energy at will, and exist in multiple realities simultaneously. It treated the fundamental forces of nature as tools for routine tasks. "Admiral Park," Emperor Gorth said slowly, "what you have shown us appears to violate every known law of physics." "I can understand why it might seem that way," Park replied with a slight smile. "But physics are more flexible than most species realize. Once you understand the underlying principles, you can work with reality rather than being limited by it." Defense Minister Kang leaned close to the Emperor. "Sire, our analysis indicates that this single human vessel could defeat our entire sector fleet without sustaining damage. And they claim this is just a routine patrol ship." Emperor Gorth felt something he had not experienced in decades. Genuine fear. Not fear of death or defeat, but fear of the unknown. The humans had demonstrated capabilities that made his mighty empire look like children playing with wooden toys. "What are your intentions in Empire space?" Gorth asked carefully. "Just peaceful exploration and cultural exchange," Admiral Park replied. "We find other civilizations fascinating. There is so much to learn from different approaches to science, art, and philosophy." The communication ended, leaving the Imperial Palace in shocked silence. Emperor Gorth looked at his advisors and saw his own fear reflected in their faces. The galaxy had changed. Humanity had risen from primitive obscurity to godlike power in a span of time that seemed impossible. "What do we do now?" General An asked quietly. Emperor Gorth had no answer. For the first time in his reign, he faced a challenge that could not be conquered through force or political maneuvering. The humans possessed technology that made his empire's greatest weapons obsolete, and they had achieved this power not through conquest or aggression, but through pure scientific curiosity. The age of empire dominance was ending, replaced by something unprecedented in galactic history, a species that had learned to rewrite the rules of reality itself. Ambassador Yoon had prepared for many types of diplomatic meetings during her long career. She had negotiated with warrior species, spoke with ancient civilizations, and made peace between hostile empires. But as her shuttle approached the human ship, she realized that nothing in her experience had prepared her for this encounter. The shuttle bay of the human vessel defied logic. From the outside, the ship was large but finite. Inside, the hangar area seemed to stretch beyond what the exterior dimensions could possibly contain. Her pilot, Commander Dal, stared through the viewport with confusion written across his face. "Ambassador," Dal said quietly, "the interior space is larger than the ship itself." "How is that possible?" Before Yoon could answer, a human approached their shuttle. She was young, perhaps equivalent to a teenage Empire citizen, but she wore the uniform of a ship's engineer. Her name tag read Chief Engineer Park, apparently sharing a family name with the Admiral. "Welcome aboard the Indomitable," the young woman said cheerfully. "I am Bo, the ship's chief engineer. Admiral Park is waiting for you in the main conference room." As they walked through the ship's corridors, Yoon observed details that made her increasingly uncomfortable. The walls displayed information screens that showed impossible data, real-time views of multiple dimensional layers, probability calculations for quantum events, and energy flow diagrams that suggested the ship drew power from the fabric of space itself. "Engineer Bo," Yoon said carefully, "may I ask about your background?" "You seem quite young for a chief engineer position." Bo laughed pleasantly. "I just graduated from technical college last month. This is my first assignment. I designed most of the ship's reality manipulation systems as my final project." Dr. Hoon, the Empire's cultural analyst who had accompanied Ambassador Yoon, nearly stumbled. "You designed reality manipulation systems as a school project?" "Well, it was an advanced class," Bo replied modestly. "Fourth-year dimensional engineering. The professor said we needed to demonstrate practical applications of theoretical physics. I chose ship design because I thought it would be fun. They passed a recreation area where human crew members were engaged in activities that challenged Ambassador Yoon's understanding of physics. Some played games that involved manipulating small objects through multiple dimensions simultaneously. Others tended to plants that seemed to grow in accelerated time fields. "What are they doing?" Dr. Hoon asked, pointing to a group playing with glowing spheres that passed through solid walls. "Oh, that is four-dimensional chess," Bo explained. "It helps keep our spatial reasoning skills sharp. The plants are growing in temporal acceleration fields. We can produce fresh food in minutes instead of months." Standard crew recreation. Ambassador Yoon watched human children, actual children, playing with toys that incorporated technology beyond the Empire's most advanced research facilities. A simple ball game involved objects that teleported between players, apparently for the fun of it. "Engineer Bo," Yoon said, "how long did it take humanity to develop these technologies?" Bo thought for a moment. "Most of the basic principles were figured out about 20 years ago. A research team at Seoul University was studying quantum consciousness theory when they accidentally discovered how to manipulate dimensional frequencies. Once we understood the fundamentals, the rest came pretty quickly." 20 years? Dr. Hoon repeated in shock. "You developed reality-altering technology in 20 years?
Well, the theoretical work took longer, Bo admitted.
Professor Kim spent almost 6 months working out the mathematics during her lunch breaks. But once she published the basic equations, everything else was just engineering applications. They reached the conference room where Admiral Park waited with several other humans. The room itself demonstrated impossible architecture. It seemed to exist in multiple geometric configurations simultaneously, providing different seating arrangements for different species' comfort requirements. "Ambassador Yoon," Admiral Park said warmly, "welcome aboard. I hope your journey was comfortable." "Admiral Park," Yoon replied formally, "I must admit that your ship is unlike anything in my experience. My government is very interested in understanding how humanity achieved such advanced technology." "Of course," Park nodded. "We are always happy to share knowledge. Captain Song here can explain our development history." Captain Song, a middle-aged human with kind eyes, activated a holographic display. "Our technological advancement began with curiosity about fundamental physics. We wanted to understand how reality actually works at its deepest levels." The display showed human history from the Empire's perspective. A primitive species developing slowly over thousands of years. Then suddenly, an explosion of advancement that seemed to violate the normal pace of technological development. "What changed?" Ambassador Yoon asked. "We stopped accepting limitations," Captain Song explained simply. "For centuries, we assumed that certain things were impossible because we did not understand them. Once we decided to approach physics as a set of flexible principles rather than rigid rules, everything became much clearer." Dr. Hoon leaned forward. "But surely such development required massive resources, centralized planning, military applications." The humans looked puzzled. "Not really," Admiral Park said. "Most of our breakthroughs came from university research projects. Students working on interesting problems, people who wanted to see if they could make impossible things work." "You mean this technology was developed by civilians? For academic purposes?" Yoon asked. "Mostly yes," Captain Song confirmed. "The reality anchor system was developed by a graduate student who wanted to create perfectly stable laboratory conditions. The dimensional engineering came from an art student who thought it would be interesting to create sculptures that existed in multiple realities simultaneously." Chief Scientist Guillaume, who had joined the delegation via holographic projection from the Empire's research stations, interrupted the conversation. "Admiral Park, our scientists have analyzed your technology and concluded that it should be impossible to develop without centuries of focused research by the greatest minds of a civilization." Admiral Park exchanged glances with his colleagues. "With respect, Chief Scientist Guillaume, I think your analysis may be based on certain assumptions about how science works." "What do you mean?" Captain Song answered. "Most species seem to approach science as a process of gradually expanding known boundaries. You build on existing knowledge, making small improvements over long periods of time." "That is the only logical approach," Dr. Hoon protested. "We tried a different method," Park explained. "Instead of building incrementally on existing knowledge, we questioned the basic assumptions underlying that knowledge." We asked whether the apparent limitations of physics might actually be limitations of understanding. Engineer Bo joined the conversation. For example, everyone assumes that matter cannot occupy the same space as other matter. But that assumption is only true if you limit yourself to three-dimensional thinking. Once you consider higher-dimensional interactions, the limitation disappears. Ambassador Yoon felt a growing sense of vertigo. The humans were describing a complete philosophical revolution in how to approach science and technology. They had not just made discoveries, they had fundamentally changed how they thought about reality itself. "So your children learn these principles from an early age?" she asked. "Of course," Park replied. "Basic dimensional manipulation is taught in primary school. By the time students reach university, they are ready for advanced applications like space-time engineering and consciousness integration." Dr. Hoon looked pale. "You teach children to manipulate space and time? It is no different from teaching them mathematics or chemistry," Captain Song said. "Once you understand that reality is much more flexible than it appears, working with dimensional forces becomes quite straightforward." The meeting continued for hours, but Ambassador Yoon's most disturbing realization came from observing the humans themselves. They were not arrogant about their achievements. They did not see themselves as superior beings. They genuinely could not understand why other species found their technology so remarkable. To them, reality manipulation was as natural as the Empire's citizens found simple chemistry. They had not set out to become gods. They had simply refused to accept that godlike power was impossible to achieve. As the meeting ended, Engineer Bo offered to give them a tour of the ship's technical sections. "We have some new probability manipulation devices that might interest your scientists," she said with the enthusiasm of someone sharing an interesting hobby. Ambassador unrealized that she was not just witnessing advanced technology. She was seeing the emergence of a completely new type of civilization, one that had learned to treat the fundamental forces of existence as tools for everyday use. The implications terrified and excited her in equal measure. Supreme Commander 1 had spent 3 sleepless days reviewing all available intelligence about human capabilities. As the Empire's highest-ranking military strategist, he understood the implications of what they had discovered. The situation was far worse than anyone had initially realized. "Tell me about their fleet strength," Emperor Gorth demanded from his throne room, surrounded by his most trusted advisors. One activated a holographic display showing human space. "Your Majesty, according to Admiral Park, the Indomitable is not their most advanced vessel." He described it as a basic patrol ship, suitable for routine first contact situations. "What does that mean?" Defense Minister Kang asked with obvious dread. "It means they have ships that are significantly more powerful," Juan replied grimly. "When I asked about their primary battleships, Admiral Park said they were a bit much for diplomatic meetings. He seemed concerned that showing their real military capability might make other species uncomfortable." The Emperor's advisors exchanged worried glances. The single human patrol ship had demonstrated abilities that could destroy entire Empire fleets. If that represented their basic technology, what did their actual warships look like? Intelligence Officer Minho stepped forward with additional disturbing news. "Your Majesty, we have discovered that humans have been observing us for much longer than we realized. Their stealth technology is so advanced that we never detected their presence." "How long?" Gorth asked. "Decades, possibly longer," Minho replied. "They have detailed records of our military capabilities, our political structure, our technological development, and our cultural practices. They know more about us than we know about ourselves. General An studied the tactical implications, so they have been watching us like scientists studying laboratory animals." "That appears to be accurate," Juan confirmed. "But they have also been in contact with 17 other galactic civilizations. According to their records, all of these species had similar reactions when encountering human technology." Dr. Inha, the Empire's leading xenopsychologist, had been analyzing human behavior patterns from their communications. "Your Majesty, the most disturbing aspect is their attitude toward their own capabilities. They do not see themselves as conquerors or rulers. They developed godlike technology purely out of scientific curiosity." "Explain," Emperor Gorth ordered. "Humans appear to be driven by an insatiable desire to understand how things work," Dr. Inha continued. They did not develop reality manipulation technology for military advantage or economic gain. They did it because they wanted to answer questions about the fundamental nature of existence. Captain Song had provided the Empire with detailed information about human technological development, and the revelations were increasingly alarming. The humans had solved problems that the Empire's greatest minds had worked on for millennia. Faster-than-light communication, matter-energy conversion, consciousness transfer, and temporal mechanics. What they consider basic physics, one reported. Our scientists consider impossible theoretical concepts. Human university students routinely work with technologies that exceed our most advanced research facilities. The Emperor's War Council had been debating response options for days. Every scenario ended the same way: complete human technological superiority that made military resistance impossible. Admiral Rim, the Empire's fleet commander, presented their tactical analysis. Your Majesty, if the humans intended conquest, they could have completed it before we ever knew they existed. Their stealth technology means they could position fleets throughout Empire space without detection. Their reality manipulation capabilities mean they could disable our entire military infrastructure without engaging in traditional combat. But they have not done so, Emperor Gorth observed. No, Sir Rim confirmed. Instead, they are offering trade agreements, cultural exchange programs, and scientific cooperation. They seem genuinely interested in peaceful relations. Dr. Inha nodded in agreement. Our psychological profiles suggest that humans view other civilizations as interesting subjects for study, rather than threats to be eliminated or resources to be exploited. They appear to value diversity of thought and approach. Intelligence Officer Minho presented perhaps the most significant revelation. Your Majesty, we have learned that human technological advancement was not planned or coordinated by their government. Most of their breakthrough discoveries were made by independent researchers, university students, and private citizens working on personal projects. What does that mean? Defense Minister Kang asked. It means there is no central authority controlling human technological development, Minho explained. Their advancement is driven by millions of individuals pursuing their own curiosity. This makes their scientific progress essentially unstoppable and unpredictable. Supreme Commander Wan highlighted the strategic implications. Your Majesty, we are not dealing with a traditional military or political threat. We are facing a species that has become godlike through the collective efforts of curious individuals. They do not want to rule us. They want to understand us. The Emperor stood and walked to the great viewport that showed the stars beyond his palace. Somewhere in that darkness, humans were continuing their impossible research, developing technologies that rewrote the fundamental laws of existence, apparently for no reason other than intellectual satisfaction. What do they want from us? Emperor Gorth asked. According to Admiral Park, Dr. Inha replied, they want to learn about our culture, our art, our philosophy, and our approach to science. They seem to believe that every civilization develops unique insights that contribute to universal understanding. They want to study us, General An said with resignation. We have gone from being the galaxy's dominant power to being research subjects for a species that treats physics as a hobby. Emperor Gorth turned back to face his advisors. What are our options? Supreme Commander Wan presented their conclusion. Your Majesty, we have three choices. We can attempt military resistance, which would result in our complete destruction. We can withdraw from human space and hope they ignore us, which would end our expansion and isolate us from the rest of the galaxy. Or we can accept their offer of cooperation and try to learn from them. And if we choose cooperation, then we acknowledge that humanity has become the galaxy's dominant technological force, Wan replied. We accept that our understanding of science and technology is primitive compared to theirs. We become junior partners in a relationship where they hold all the real power. The silence in the throne room stretched for long minutes. Emperor Gorth had built his empire through conquest and strength. Now he faced a species that could end his civilization with casual ease, but chose instead to offer friendship and knowledge. There is one more thing, Your Majesty, Dr. Inha said quietly. According to our analysis, humanity's technological development is accelerating. What they consider routine today will be primitive compared to what they develop next year. They are not approaching some upper limit of advancement. They are just beginning to explore what is possible. Emperor Gorth realized that he was witnessing the birth of something unprecedented in galactic history, a species that had learned to treat reality itself as raw material for their engineering projects. They had become something beyond traditional concepts of civilization or empire. "Send a message to Admiral Park," Emperor Gorth commanded. "Tell him that the Galactic Empire formally accepts humanity's offer of cooperation and cultural exchange." As his advisors prepared to draft the most important diplomatic communication in Empire history, Emperor Gorth continued to stare at the stars. The galaxy was changing in ways that no one could predict. Humanity had risen from obscurity to become something that transcended normal categories of power and knowledge. The age of empire dominance was ending, but something far more extraordinary was beginning. And no one, not even the humans themselves, knew where their unstoppable curiosity would lead them next.